This is CBC Winnipeg News.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us. 2 Winnipeg police officers are in the hospital tonight with serious injuries after a collision with a stolen pickup truck. It happened early this morning at the intersection of Main Street and Belmont Avenue. As CBC's Josh Crabb reports, investigators are saying little else.
A Winnipeg police cruiser with a crushed front end sat in the boulevard on Main Street. The aftermath of a collision around 4 Wednesday morning with this stolen pickup truck. Its rear wheel was missing. The driver of the pickup and 2 officers were sent to hospital.
Some scary moments this morning for the entire WPS community, but the injuries are serious, but I am so thankful we're not talking about life-threatening injuries right now.
Winnipeg Police Service Constable Jason Mikulishin says officers saw the stolen truck being driven nearby in the area of Inkster Boulevard and St. Cross Street. The truck then collided with a cruiser in the area of Main Street and Belmont Avenue. Investigators aren't saying if another police car was chasing the truck or if the officers in the cruiser that was hit were looking for the stolen vehicle.
No, I can't say specifically, the exact impact and what exactly took place. Right now, we have traffic collision investigators on scene that are very meticulously, assessing the scene, trying to determine exactly what took place.
Police had 5 blocks of the busy street closed in all directions. The police watchdog is also investigating because there were serious injuries. We spoke to a couple of neighbors. One man who lives in this apartment building says he woke up to the sound of a loud crash and saw red and blue lights flashing. A woman who lives across the street says she heard yelling and saw officers surround the truck.
Is it really Main Street if a truck almost goes through your window?
Video captured by the man in the apartments shows the pickup truck came to a stop just in front of a fence surrounding the building. Several other neighbors told CBC they didn't hear sirens but heard a bang. The driver of the stolen truck was taken into custody and to hospital for treatment. Josh Crabb, CBC News, Winnipeg.
The Governor-General is in Winnipeg tonight on her first official visit to Manitoba. Mary Simon plans to visit every province and territory. She hopes on working on reconciliation and also to meet with people working in the public service. CBC's Emily Brass joins us now from outside Government House live. Emily, what's happening there now?
Well, Janet, a reception started just about an hour ago here at Government House. Mary Simon is meeting with youth and community leaders, and she arrived in Winnipeg yesterday, and she's had a pretty packed agenda ever since. Tuesday started out with a visit to 17 Wing, and then she went to Willow's Place Women's Shelter, and after that met with Ukrainian refugees. Today, she had an official welcome ceremony on the grounds of the Manitoba Legislature, where she inspected the guards. She then met with Premier Heather Stephenson and the Lieutenant Governor. After that, a meeting was held with Manitoba's Minister of Indigenous Relations and Reconciliation, Eileen Clark, and Indigenous leaders, including AMC Grand Chief Kathy Merrick and SCO Grand Chief Jerry Daniels. And Simon's office says the focus was on advancing reconciliation. And during a brief press conference, she was asked about the statues of Queen Elizabeth and Queen Victoria here on the legislative grounds. Now, those statues were damaged last summer during a demonstration calling for justice on the deaths of Indigenous children in residential schools. And the statue of Queen Victoria was beheaded and damaged beyond repair, but the one of Queen Elizabeth was restored and just last Friday was reinstalled on the legislative grounds, only to be vandalized again the very next day. Now, of course, the Governor-General is the monarchy's official representative here in Canada, but Mary Simon is also an Indigenous woman, and here's what she had to say about the statues being defaced.
The effects of colonizations and residential schools have had such a devastating impact on the cultures and identity of Indigenous people that there is frustrations, there's anger, and they will from time to time express that anger and the frustrations. For me, as a representative of the King, my role is to help understand what's going on. So in a way, I can't say whether it's right or wrong. It's right for the people maybe that are doing it, but it's wrong for the people that want the history to continue as it was. But reconciliation is bringing those two understandings together so that they can live side by side with respect.
So, Emily, what's next on Mary Simon's agenda?
Well, tomorrow the Governor General will visit the National Center for Truth and Reconciliation in the morning, and then in the afternoon she's going to go to the University of Manitoba for a convocation ceremony where she'll be awarded an honorary Doctor of Law degree in recognition of all her dedication towards working with Indigenous communities. Janet?
Thank you so much. That's the CBC's Emily Brass reporting live tonight. Neighbors who fought against an apartment project in Tuxedo say they feel defeated. A provincial board gave the plans the green light after the residents appealed. CBC's Cameron McLean explains.
Traffic is busy along Shaftesbury Boulevard between Grant and Roblin, and residents worried that a planned apartment complex on this plot of land could make that even worse.
We have difficulty crossing our street. The street is extremely narrow, and you cannot pass if there's a parked car.
The plans call for 3 buildings with 58 units total. The property sits between the Tuxedo Golf Course and Canadian Mennonite University. Residents appealed the city's decision to rezone the land from park to residential. They worry it sets a precedent for other park space. They also compared the project to a separate decision to approve apartments here on nearby Roblin Boulevard. That decision was overturned last year by the Manitoba Municipal Board, but now that same board has recommended the Shaftesbury project proceed.
This is one more thing that contributes to the lack of safety for the people here. So very troubling.
Area Councillor Evan Duncan commended the residents for voicing their concerns. But he's heard from others who are worried about a lack of affordable housing.
My residents have expressed a deep desire to age in place and remain in the communities.
Duncan wasn't on council at the time of the original decision. His predecessor, Kevin Klein, cast the lone vote against the project. Duncan isn't sure how he'll vote once the plans come back for final council approval.
I'm going to look at it once the public service comes back with their analysis and reactions to it. I'll look at that report and then make a final decision.
CBC News reached out to the property owner and the developer, but did not receive a response. A date has not been set for when council will revisit the plan. Cameron McLean, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Well, we have been getting a bit of a break today from the extreme heat outside and all that humidity, but it won't be long before we'll be back in the low 30s. The CBC's Joanne Roberts spoke with some seniors who say they're finding cost-effective ways to stay cool.
It's been an unusually long and early heat wave, and many Winnipeg seniors are looking for economical ways to cool off.
Yes, right. You are they keeping up with?
Teacher Sylvia Russell usually does her lessons outside as she walks, but the heat has her rethinking the usual routine.
We're thinking really we should go to the mall and walk next time.
These seniors are staying cool at their English language program with Pembina Active Living, or PAL, an organization dedicated to improving the quality of life for seniors through different activities.
It could be singing, dancing.
Birgit Hall is 82 years old. She says she's used to living without air conditioning. Growing up in Germany after the Second World War, she says her family had to find a creative way to cool down.
So we put cold water into a sink or a bowl and just put our arms up to our elbows into cold water for 10-15 minutes.
Hall says she loves the outdoors and she isn't letting the heat keep her from enjoying it. She prepares before heading out.
Get a neckerchief, wet it, roll it and put it in the freezer. And then before we go for a walk or a cycle, we put it around our neck.
Between May 28th and June 4th, 28 people went to hospitals in Winnipeg because of the heat, compared to 4 during the same period last year.
You're welcome.
Susan Fletcher is the executive director for PAL and a senior herself. She says older adults need to pay more attention to their bodies during extreme weather, especially because heat stroke in seniors can cause nausea and confusion.
It's harder for their temperature gauge to work as we age. So it's really important to keep hydrated, keep cool.
I'm happy. Oh. How are you?
Fletcher says if people are looking for more support during the heat, they can go to senior centers.
You really can get more help there because there's people who know about these things. There's fun, there's socializing, and you're not thinking about the heat anymore. That's so important.
Environment Canada is reminding you to check on seniors, especially those with health conditions, to make sure they're feeling well and drinking water. Joanne Roberts, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Meteorologist John Sauter joins us now. It has been cooler today. It seems less humid outside, but still unsettled.
Starting to feel like the movie Groundhog Day a little bit. It's third day in a row, and likely again tomorrow, where we see these pop up, very isolated and slow-moving storms. So kind of a weird weather pattern we're in. But okay, we're going to start with that. We're going to start with where the storms are, looking at a 3-hour loop here of satellite and radar. Nice sunshine here in the Winnipeg area. And as Janet mentioned that there is a little break from the heat. So 25 is really what we were doing today instead of that 31, 32 degrees. Pretty clear here. Notice the action out to the west. Now, if we take away the cloud and add some lightning to that, we get the warnings in here as well. Through most of today, we've had a severe thunderstorm watch in effect. That's this shaded area. And then where we see the yellow shaded areas, that is a severe thunderstorm warning. And those are changing by the minute. You just saw part of that end right there. Out north of Swan River and now south of Swan River, we're seeing this storm that is forming to the east of Benito. So this storm originally had the warning on it. Now we've got two separate cells warned in that area, and right around Strathclair, north of Minnedosa, or northwest and now west of Minnedosa, is where we're seeing this quite stationary storm that is giving up nickel-sized hail, lots of lightning, lots of rain with that, and it is very slow moving. And then within the last 45 or 50 minutes, we had a warning right around Melita. That has since ended, but we'll need to keep watching these storms on the Saskatchewan side of the border. And then across southwestern Manitoba, we still have the heat warning in effect. It's not in effect here in the Red River Valley. It has been ended, but this is where we're still expecting some very warm overnight lows, and again, warm temperatures on the way for tomorrow. All right, right now in Winnipeg, we are at 24 degrees, dew point 19. And you know, on my dew point scale, the humidity scale, that's pretty sticky. So it is a moist one out there. Southeast winds today have been around 25 to 30 kilometers per hour. You look at Futurecast and how this all just kind of dies out as the sun angles get lower and we get into nighttime. Tomorrow morning, out of this cloud, we could see a couple of stray showers, but really not much energy there at all. And then later in the day, I think tomorrow is a slightly less energetic day as far as available potential for storms. And then as we get into Friday, we see some massive clearing from the north and a very stable air mass moving in. Talked about storm energy. You look at the colors today and look at the legend here, and we're getting up into the yellows and reds, or oranges at least. That really just kind of moves out of the region for tonight and then sort of reappears tomorrow, but it's not quite as much, maybe a little bit more up into northeastern Manitoba, not so much here in the south. So the energy will be down, and I don't think tomorrow will be quite a stormy day, but we'll have to watch for those isolated showers and storms. There is a chance of an evening shower tonight. I think that stays west of the Red River Valley. And then again tomorrow, we've got about a 30% risk of a thunderstorm, a high once again around 26, and then just very stable weather. Look at Saturday. We wake up to 13, 23 in the afternoon, all the way down to 11 by Sunday morning. Ducks Unlimited has an event coming up this summer that involves raising money, raising awareness, and a really long bike ride. I talked to the co-chair of Ride to the Lake today. Kevin McFadden is the co-chair of an event coming up this summer that is called Canada Life Ride to the Lake. This lake is not near here. Tell me about the event.
No, the lake is quite a ways away, John. The lake is actually Lake of the Woods, Kenora, Ontario. We're going to cycle all the way from Winnipeg to Kenora on Friday, July 21st, in support of Ducks Unlimited Canada. and saving the wetlands.
Let's talk about Ducks Unlimited and saving the wetlands. Tell me why that is so important.
Well, John, wetlands, as a lot of people already know, are really vital to the environment. Wetlands act as a filter for nitrates, phosphates, and lately flood mitigation. So without wetlands, we have a lot of problems. And Canada, unfortunately, has lost the majority of our wetlands. So Ducks Unlimited, one of our key mandates is to save and preserve and rehabilitate some of the existing wetlands.
I heard the number is like 70% loss across Canada. That number is staggering to me. How is a ride like this and the fundraising effort going to help Ducks Unlimited and saving our wetlands?
Yeah, well, two things. One, it's going to bring awareness to the fact that we need to protect our wetlands. That's first and foremost. Secondly, this year we hope to raise $400,000 to go directly into the land and protecting wetlands. This is our 7th year of the event, and we will exceed $1 million this year. We've raised cumulatively about $900,000 in the first 6 years, and this year will put us well over $1 million raised specifically to save wetlands.
And of course, as you said, the awareness is really, really important. The ride itself is, I've been studying, 221 kilometers, and you're going to ride in the event, right?
I am.
Are you prepared? Have you been training?
I'm feeling a little undertrained, John, to be honest with you.
You know there are a few hills just before you leave Manitoba, and then...
My least favorite part of the ride. There's 3 components to the ride this year. We've recognized that not everybody wants to ride that distance or wants to train that much to do that distance. So we have a half marathon, which is about 120K, and we have a 60. And fully supported, the 60's right from the border. We're all going to gather at the end and celebrate at the Whitecap Pavilion, the tent right on the harbor front in Kenora.
That sounds fantastic.
Yeah.
That sounds really great. Any special equipment other than the obvious padding in special places?
Yeah, padded shorts help for sure.
That's about it.
Yeah,
right?
that's about it.
Okay, how many riders are you expecting this year?
We expect over 50 this year, John. We will have 40 to 50 doing the full ride, and probably another 20 to 25 that will do the half or the shorty.
And there's a deadline. People can still register?
They can, yes. We have a deadline of Monday to get your registration in so that you get your full head-to-toe kit.
Okay.
But we will be accepting riders after that. Tonight, in fact, we have an information session, an open house at 74 Princess Street at 7 p.m. for anybody that's interested in coming out and learning more about the ride.
That's fantastic. And if people want to know more about the ride or more about Ducks Unlimited, website?
Yeah, ducks.ca. If you navigate a little bit, you'll find all sorts of information on who we are and the ride specifically, and you can actually register on that website.
Kevin, thank you for this.
Thanks, John.
Good luck with the ride.
Thank you. Yeah.
You're going to do great.
Thank you.
The Bank of Canada has once again raised its key interest rate. What that increase means for your pocketbook after the break.
There was never a formal investigation into what happened, which I think happens often, that assumptions are just made and it's normalized. That sometimes we just die a violent death and that's it.
At some point, we need to move beyond acknowledgement and recognition, and we need to act.
The Bank of Canada has raised its key interest rate to 4.75%. That's an increase of 25 basis points. This is the first time since January that rates have been hiked by the Bank of Canada. Nisha Patel tells us why.
For anyone with a variable rate mortgage, borrowing is about to get more expensive. The Bank of Canada hiked its key interest rate for the first time since January. It's now at 4.75%, the highest level since 2001. The central bank had paused in January to see if 8 aggressive rate hikes would be enough to get inflation under control. But Canada's economy hasn't slowed enough. The housing market has picked up and the labor market remains tight. And with the latest inflation rate ticking higher, the Bank of Canada moved to raise rates, saying concerns have increased that CPI inflation could get stuck above the 2% target.
A lot of consumers will be facing those dual dynamics right now of high inflation, high interest rates, and other types of challenges as we kind of see potentially a slowing economy at the same time.
The Bank of Canada uses higher interest rates as a tool to slow spending and cool the economy. But some analysts aren't convinced they're the correct fix.
Geopolitical reconfiguring because of supply lines, climate change events, extreme climate change events, all of these things are cranking up prices. And raising rates isn't necessarily the right medicine. However, it's the only medicine we have relied on since the 1980s.
The Bank of Canada says it will monitor inflation to determine whether even higher interest rates are necessary. Many market watchers are betting the central bank isn't finished, predicting another rate hike in July. Nisha Patel, CBC News, Toronto.
Families are struggling today in southern Ukraine, many swamped in homes flooded with contaminated water. Officials say the damage from the massive dam, which was destroyed yesterday, is just extensive, and it will take years to recover. CBC's Briar Stewart brings us the story.
In the city of Kherson, residents who've lived through war for more than a year now have to be rescued by boat. We have become used to the shelling, said this woman, but a natural disaster like this is a nightmare. Animals are stranded too, surrounded by floodwaters, tainted with whatever has been swept up.
Thousands of houses.
This MP could smell fuel while down at the Dnipro River.
Hundreds of tons of engine oil with the bodies of dead animals. All of this is moving to the Black Sea.
Officials say it could take a week for the water to recede, much longer to get a true sense of the environmental damage. These images show dead fish at the drained bottom of the dam's reservoir. Ukraine says that hundreds of thousands of people have been left without drinking water. This official says they will bring it in by train and by car. The Defense Ministry released this video of a drone apparently dropping off water too. Satellite images show that the Nova Kakhovka Dam had recently sustained structural damage even before it burst. The dam was under control by Russian forces, and so are communities on the south side of the Dnipro River. This man's house is now filled with the putrid mix of water and sewage. There's no help from the authorities, he says, so he'll be left cleaning up on his own. The war can't go on forever. It must end sometime, he says. We're staying here for now. Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan spoke with both the president of Ukraine and the president of Russia. In his phone call with Vladimir Putin, he reportedly said that there needs to be an international investigation into the dam's destruction, and it could include the UN. Briar Stewart, CBC News, London.
Pope Francis is in the hospital recovering from stomach surgery. The 84-year-old pontiff is expected to recover, but this is just the latest health problem plaguing the leader of the world's 1.3 billion Roman Catholics. CBC's Megan Williams has more.
Italian Dr. Sergio Alfieri, who led the 3-hour operation on Pope Francis this afternoon, said the surgery on the Pope's bowel and abdomen went smoothly. There were no complications. He said he operated on a hernia that had formed on a scar from previous surgeries Pope Francis has undergone in recent years. He said all of the tissue removed was benign and that the Pope does not suffer from any other diseases, cancer included. Alfieri is the same surgeon that operated on Pope Francis in 2021 on the Pope's colon. That's when he was in the hospital for 10 days. And Alfieri removed more than 30 centimeters of the colon. And he said after today's surgery, once the Pope woke up from the general anesthesia, he joked to the doctor, you know, when are we going to do this a third time? Alfieri said the Pope will be in the hospital for 5 to 7 days. In the meantime, the Vatican released a statement saying Pope Francis has canceled all of his appointments until June 18th to give him more time to recover. But the Vatican also said that the Pope plans on continuing with his trips, his scheduled trips. He has one in early August for the Catholic World Youth Day in Lisbon, Portugal. And at the end of August, he's planning to go to Mongolia. In the meantime, the Pope is recovering in the hospital here, the Gemelli Hospital here in Rome. Megan Williams, CBC News, Rome.
Prince William, Prince William's little brother, Prince Harry, was in a London court today for the second day in a row, testifying against Mirror Group newspapers over alleged phone hacking. But as Chris Brown reports, Prince Harry faces major challenges in proving his case.
The prince, who claims he has endured unending and much of it illegal media scrutiny since he was a child, is trying to convince a judge to hold a British newspaper publisher accountable. Harry was cross-examined for the second straight day in a series of combative exchanges with lawyers for the Mirror Group newspapers. The company has previously settled 600 claims for illegally intercepting voicemails, but says Harry was never hacked. In court, both sides sparred over a selection of 33 stories, many focusing on Harry's relationship with a former girlfriend, Chelsea Davy. He claimed a private investigator put a tracking device on their car. The newspaper reports that he went drinking at a club after being dumped had to have originated from hacked phone calls. The Mirror lawyers say that's just speculation. Under cross-examination, Harry was asked to point to any specific voicemail that he knows with certainty was hacked. He couldn't, instead saying there is only hard evidence of suspiciousness that many were.
I think we've seen a lack of detail, perhaps.
Media lawyer Antonia Foster says a major challenge is that many of the calls or voice messages are now irretrievable.
I mean, they go back to 1996, and so, I mean, I couldn't tell you what was on my phone a year ago, and I suspect Harry's in that particular situation.
Much will depend on how the journalists who wrote the stories explain themselves. Jane Kerr, a former Mirror royal editor, testified immediately after Harry while he stayed in court to listen. She says she didn't know how a private investigator obtained phone numbers, and she never asked him. Harry was on the stand for 8 hours in total over the 2 days. He testified if the decision, which is still weeks away, goes against him, it would be an injustice. Chris Brown, CBC News, London.
Mike Pence, Donald Trump's former vice president, has thrown his hat into the ring, announcing today he will run against his former boss, the former president, for the Republican nomination.
The answer, Iowa, is strong, conservative, Republican leadership back in the White House.
Pence trails both Trump and Florida Governor Ron DeSantis in what many are calling a two-way race in a crowded field of about a dozen candidates. While the 64-year-old Pence has not been openly critical of his former boss, it is rare for a former vice president to run against a president he served under. Officials in Hawaii issued a red alert this morning as the Kilauea volcano erupted. It is one of the world's most volatile volcanoes, and it's the second time this year the mountain has spewed out a toxic mix of lava and gas. The area is off limits to the public, so there's little chance of injury this time, but experts are monitoring this gurgling mountain around the clock. Officials in Quebec say this wildfire season is the worst on record. 150 fires are burning, and the number of evacuees is expected to hit 15,000. That story is coming up. Officials say Canada could be in for the worst wildfire season we've had on record. In Quebec alone, the number of wildfire evacuees is expected to hit 15,000 by the end of the day. Jennifer Yoon has the latest.
They had to leave their homes abruptly. Now, many aren't sure when exactly they can return. Evacuees from Chibougamau and Oujé-Bougounou are settling into cots and temporary lodgings in and around Riverval, and they're not the only ones. Stephanie Breton, who left her home in Lebel-sur-Quévillon, says she's never seen anything like this.
Right on the other side of the lake, you could see the fire. So it is, honestly, it's wild. Like, I never, like, even though I've been living in Quévillon for 12 years almost, I don't think I ever thought that this would happen.
Quebec Premier François Legault says the dry weather and strong winds have made the situation especially dangerous. And there's no rain in sight for some areas, at least for a few days. Legault says 11 water bombers are operating in the province, but he says he needs backup. And he's appealing to other provinces as well as other countries for help, including the US, Mexico, and Portugal.
Right now, with the manpower we have, we can fight about 40 fires at the same time, but we have 150 fires.
Legault says reinforcements are on the way from New Brunswick and France. Across Canada, hundreds of fires are burning, many out of control, says Canada's Minister for Public Safety.
Today, there are 2,293 wildfires that have occurred in Canada. Approximately 3.8 million hectares have been burned. And across the country, as of today, there are 414 wildfires burning, 239 of which are determined to be out of control.
In the face of thousands displaced, Ottawa says it's looking into options for a national disaster response agency. All this as the fires continue to leave a smoky haze over North America. Jennifer Yoon, CBC News, Montreal.
Yeah, that smoky haze, smoke from the wildfires is settling over many major cities and communities even far away from the flames. It's affecting millions of people, especially in Ontario and Quebec. Idil Musa has more on that.
Burning wildfires ushered in yet another day of smoke-filled skies in much of the country. The thick haze is even affecting golf pros, teeing off at the Canadian Open in Toronto.
Honestly, I probably shouldn't be outside for 8 hours straight, but that's going to be tough this week.
According to Environment Canada, poor air quality continues to plague parts of Quebec, including Montreal. And it's even worse in Ontario. In cities like Ottawa and Kingston, the air quality has reached dangerous levels. And the bad news is the smoke is not expected to clear for days.
You're looking at spending a day outside is like smoking the equivalent of a half pack of cigarettes.
Experts are urging people with health issues to stay inside and avoid strenuous outdoor activities. It's unavoidable, though, for those forced to work outside.
It's been much harder on the guys, a lot more sort of headaches. You got to take more breaks, more water. If this holds out for the rest of the summer, it will be a hard, slow summer to get things done because definitely people are going to need time off to recuperate.
In Quebec, members of the Algonquins of Barrier Lake were evacuated on Sunday because of the dangerously heavy smoke.
The fires have been contained nearby, but there's still a lot heavy smoke coming from those areas.
The effects of the fires in central Canada are also being felt in the U.S. as the smoke drifts south. The U.S. National Weather Service has issued air quality alerts for nearly the entire Atlantic seaboard.
I wear the mask because I hear about the smoke is coming from Canada, and they say it's very dangerous. So that's why I started using again.
I make sure I stay indoors most of the time.
Here at home, some municipalities are inviting people to community centers and libraries to get away from the thick, smoky air. Idil Musa, CBC News, Toronto.
John's been keeping an eye on the storms in western Manitoba.
And they're getting worse. We have a tornado warning that has been issued just to the northwest of Brandon. Let's go right to the map and I'll show you exactly where this is. Watch that storm just to the northwest of Brandon and you can see how much worse it is getting. We'll zoom in a little bit here and you can see this, this sort of purple or pink color right in the middle. That is a very, very heavy rain rate. What I look for in base reflectivity radar here is in the last frame, if it starts to have a little bit of a hook echo, That means there's rotation under the storm, but Environment Canada thinks there is rotation under the storm based on Doppler radar. So the warning area is right around rivers. We'll get closer again. You can see all of the lightning along that storm as it heads in that southeasterly direction and will come very close to Brandon. Will the tornado warning continue? Not sure about that. If we stop seeing the rotation on Doppler radar, that warning will end and it'll be a severe thunderstorm warning. But that is the one I'm watching right now, and I'll keep you posted through the rest of this newscast for sure. 24 in Winnipeg right now, same temperature downtown. Eli is at 29, a cooler 21 in Selkirk. We've got some 28s and 29s to the west, and this is where the heat warning is still in effect through southwestern Manitoba, but you can see a bit of relief back to the east. Kenora just at 17 right now. We head to the north, and it is another warm day across northern Manitoba. Some temperatures here close to 30, even a 25 in Churchill at the moment. Forecast conditions for tonight. Well, we'll start with the cloud cover. A little bit of cloud out to the east, and that's why it's cooler in Kenora. But look at the big buildups here, and that's where we're seeing those violent storms in southwestern Manitoba that will likely continue for a few more hours. We've got a chance of showers out of some of that cloud I just showed you out into northwestern Ontario. Here in the southeast, there is a chance for an evening shower or storm around Emerson and around the Barons River area. And then we've got evening storms, of course, around Brandon, Dauphin, Swan River. Will some of these reach eastern regions? Not in that severe thunderstorm watch, so the thinking is not really, with the exception of the Emerson area. A few storms around Norway House. All of this is settling down as we head into tomorrow. Lots of sunshine tomorrow across the north. A few morning showers or storms in Island Lake. And then here in the south, it'll be another repeat where we see isolated showers, storms popping up in the afternoon. And then we'll just have to track and see where they go. Temperatures 30 or so in Swan River, 27s and 28s in the rest of the west. And we have that opportunity for showers and storms here in the southeast, although I think the chance is 40% or less. And then mid-20s and a sun-cloud mix tomorrow in northwestern Ontario. I'll give you another look at the radar once again just ahead of the 7-day forecast.
Thank you, John.
You bet.
This is Canadian Environment Week. One of the themes this year is beating plastic pollution. Polystyrene is a plastic polymer that, when expanded, can make styrofoam that gets packed around the electronic items you buy or made into those food takeout containers. It takes 500 years for styrofoam to break down. At least it does without help. Marissa Magsino is a grade 11 student at St. Mary's Academy who's been working for years now to figure out a faster way to rid the world of expanded polystyrene. Thanks for joining us, Marissa.
Yes, thanks so much for having me.
Why do you care so much about this?
Well, you see, polystyrene foam results in over 50 million tons of plastic waste in our landfills each year. And with the resource of mealworms and their ability to biodegrade polystyrene material, I immediately realized the true potential for a biological solution that actually could be practical in our society. So my research over the past 4 years, I've utilized different natural oils, extracts, external environments, all with the goal to maximize mealworms' natural ability to consume polystyrene material.
What is it about this that you actually enjoy? What is it that ticks for you?
So I know there's so many other types of research that I could have done or gravitated towards, but just understanding that mealworms can biodegrade polystyrene, to me, it's such a miracle of biology, and I've never seen anything like this before. Mealworms are incredibly unique. Their gut microbiome is so different from any other invertebrate. And once I saw that they could do this, I was like, I need to test ways to maximize this process because, in what we do now is we mechanically break down polystyrene, we, squish it together, there's recycling, but something about utilizing nature to break down a man-made material is so innovative, and I'm really attracted to the process that mealworms play in biodegrading polystyrene.
Does it make you hopeful that we someday might solve the plastic pollution problem?
It does. It makes me extremely hopeful for the future. And knowing that there's other curious scientists out there that are committed to discovering things that benefit the environment, I know that great minds can come together and we can actually solve our polystyrene issue.
You've got a whole proof of concept recycling station working. This could actually work.
Absolutely. So just a few years ago, I actually implemented a mealworm recycling station in St. Mary's Academy. So I had a large bin, and then students and teachers could put their used styrofoam into this bin, and the mealworms would consume it on site, which was really cool to watch and just show people how innovative this solution can truly be at tackling real problems and how it can be done anywhere with such little resources.
What's the next step for you besides this experiment? I mean, you're in grade 11. You've got to be thinking probably of university. You've been working at a lab at the University of Manitoba. Where do you see yourself in a couple of years?
Well, after high school, I definitely want to continue discovering and doing different tests in the area of mealworm biodegrading polystyrene material. But I also, because my project includes so many areas of interest for me, chemistry, biology, definitely getting a biochemistry degree and then hopefully becoming some sort of doctor or researcher in the future is my ultimate goal.
Well, thanks for taking the time to talk with us, and congratulations on the accomplishments so far.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Still ahead, the story of a woman from Cross Lake and how her mother was murdered. Her sister also died. The next installment in our Mother, Sister, Daughter series, next. We're bringing you stories this week that speak to the progress made in the 4 years since the National Inquiry into Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls issued a report calling for change. Many local women have been very open, very strong in sharing their own stories to emphasize the need for change. Destiny Papanicus is one of them. She grew up in Cross Lake in northern Manitoba. Tonight she shares with us her family's story.
My name is Destiny Papanicus, and I grew up in Cross Lake, Manitoba. My band is Brochet, and my Indian name is Black Buffalo Woman. My mother, Martha Michelle, she was working on her PhD in linguistics. She had her master's. She was a very hardworking woman. She was dedicated to her schoolwork and dedicated to preserving the Cree language. My mom didn't even teach me the language, our language, because she didn't want me to be called a dirty Indian because of what they were taught in residential school. She was murdered in her sleep while battling lung cancer and breast cancer. She was murdered by her stepson. He apparently got 17 years and only did 5, and he is out now. My sister, she was killed in Regina. Her name is Angel Blue Sky Papanicus. She would never kill herself, but what it looked like, what they say, is that she hung herself in the closet. But the bruises on her face says she didn't. The stories just don't add up, and there was nothing done about it. The deaths have impacted all our lives really bad. There's no justice. They just throw our lives into the gutter, basically, and just another dead Indian. Justice would mean getting the truth out there and having people treating everybody equal, and our people having our own government, our own police service, our own healthcare system, everything Aboriginal. We should be running this country. We should be treated like kings and queens, not like slaves. Why aren't we running this country?
Stories like Destiny's can be upsetting. If you need support, the number for Talk Suicide Canada is on your screen right now. You'll find it at talksuicide.ca as well. You can also text them. The number's on your screen and on the website. Kids Help Phone is an option to anyone who needs to talk as well. Still ahead tonight, John's 7-day forecast, and he's keeping an eye on that tornado warning for you. We'll be right back.
Your 7-day forecast coming right up. I want to update you on this storm that is near Brandon, near Rivers, Manitoba. The tornado warning has ended. It is now a severe thunderstorm warning, likely because Doppler radar is no longer picking up that rotation under the storm. So that is the good news. This is still a serious storm. This one has hail that is probably the size of nickels or quarters, and it also has lots of lightning and some very, very heavy rain, and it looks like it's turning a little bit toward the Brandon area. So we'll have to keep an eye on that storm, an eye to the sky, as we watch through the evening hours to see how this storm moves into the Brandon area. Now, once we get past tomorrow, a few more showers and storms to get into much more stable weather, and it looks like we'll be back into the low 30s by early next week.
Students at a Winnipeg school are still fawning over a baby deer born on the school grounds last week.
Ecole Viscount Alexander has been sharing updates on social media. Here's your daily lift.
The fawn spent the whole day at the school on Friday. The school counselor told CBC, I'm whispering because, you know, he looks like he's sleeping, told CBC the mother deer left and came back periodically throughout the day. So look, they made a sign that's saying, please stay away from me. My mom will be back soon to feed me and nurse me. Make sure the baby was safe. That was their top priority. So they even made this time-lapse video, keeping tabs on the fawn all day until witnesses say mom and baby wandered off into the woods together to live happily ever after, John Sauter.
Yeah, what a great local story
So
that
great.
is.
Until the fawn learns how to skate with Thumper. Remember? On the ice.
I do remember.
Yeah.
You know where we're going now?
Skating.
We're going to Florida, Game 3 of the Stanley Cup Final between the Golden Knights and the Panthers. Panthers kind of got thumped the other night, so we'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens. Have a wonderful night. See you tomorrow.
See ya.